Cool. Hi, Bhakti. Good afternoon, good morning. What time is it in Hong Kong?
Hi, Pungi. Good to see you. It's 5 p.m.
So you're ahead. You're ahead of your times.
Yeah. Well, they're being very kind. It's well said. Yes, we're 2.5 hours ahead of India.
Oh, fantastic. So, Bhakti, I think thanks for doing this. This is a series of conversations with women, kind women, strong women, gracious women, and book writers, bankers, term book writers, bibliotherapists, women like you. So the idea is to more and more have people share their stories such that it becomes mainstream for men and women to share their stories, inspire, be
Mhm.
vulnerable out there, and make the world a kinder place. And yeah, thanks for coming on board. So it's a rapid fire that exists. We have around 10-15 minutes. So if I had to ask you to give you full space to tell your story, how would you share it to the rest of the audience?
Yeah. So thank you, Pungi. It's really a delight to be here on the People, Passion, and Purpose podcast. I love the name that you've given your podcast. And my story is that I was in banking for many years, more than 22 years. And my kids were quite small at the time. They were 1 and 3, and I was looking for a book on Holi, which was coming. It was November, and Holi, as you know, was around March. I couldn't find anything that I really liked. I was sitting with my husband, and I said, I haven't found a book I really like. I think I want to write a book on my own on Holi to tell him the story. And my husband said, just do it. And it sounded like a Nike ad at that point, but it gave me the impetus and it got me started. And so I ventured into the territory of writing children's book out of a place of necessity. And have a big background of mythology in the sense that both my grandmothers were very passionate storytellers. So every occasion they would catch hold of me and tell me stories from the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. I also had a male nanny who used to take care of me because my mother was a librarian. And when I came back from school, she'd be at work. And he couldn't read or write, but he was the best storyteller in the world. And when we grew up, there were no iPhones, no iPads. So when I came back home, he would catch hold of me and tell me these stories. So it was like a 2 hour wonderful storytelling session about the most evil of demons and about kings and queens and magical places. And I think somewhere that sparked my curiosity and my interest. And when I had my children, I was very keen to share with them the stories I grew up hearing. And also, I had that sense that I wanted to keep this tradition of oral storytelling alive, which had done so much for me as a little girl.
Amazing. So from your mom being a librarian to you hearing stories, now you crafting stories for your kids and kids outside. Fantastic journey.
Yeah.
What have been some of the things that you've learned so far in your journey?
So, one of the things that I've learned because I self published the series, and it's called Amma Tell Me, is that as a self published author, you're playing two roles. You're playing one as a writer and the other as a business person. So, it has really allowed me to explore what being a small entrepreneur is like, and completely different skill sets needed for that, in the sense thinking about the pricing of the book, the quality of the paper, which markets to put it in, what should the social media marketing strategy be, who should be the illustrator, how do I manage my cash flow. So that's a thing that one thing that I clearly learned. The other thing was to, instead of spending too much time thinking, it's good to do some research but then get into action, because for me most of the learning happened in the doing. And I think if I had just kept thinking about it and spent more time there, it would not have been as productive. And
Mhm.
finally, is go by your gut, trust your heart, and take the leap.
Wow, trusting your heart and take the leap. So, it sort of brings me to say a question like, you are a coach, you understand questions that arise in the moment. Um, One of the questions that's come to me is, what would you like to acknowledge yourself for all these activities that you said in terms of business, in terms of writing?
Wow, now I feel I'm in a coaching session with you. I think the first thing that comes up is gratitude. Gratitude for so many people who've helped me. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Let me tell you, it takes an entire city to raise an author. From
Absolutely,
people
yeah.
who've given of themselves so selflessly in terms of advice on writing, on publishing, reading my drafts, pointing me in the right direction, things like introducing me to illustrators, giving me ideas. Then the support at home, there's a lot of invisible support that we don't see. For example, my husband putting my kids to bed if I'm writing, or taking care of the food and other things in the house when I've been busy or when I've been traveling. So that support system and a peaceful environment at home is very important for someone to be in that creative space and to access that space. So I think I'm immensely grateful for that.
Wow. I think you rightly said it takes a city to raise an author. It definitely does. I can share that from experience because it sometimes takes multiple cities, not just one. And then I think also, as I think you'd also agree that sometimes support come from places you never expected.
Yes.
And sort of a segue into our next question. So one of the things I am very interested to learn through this series is the space of kindness. So how's your experience with you sharing acts of kindness, or how's kindness come to you in multiple forms?
So when you were asking me the last question, this was coming to my mind that I worked in private banking for a long time and I had a wonderful boss. And when I told him that I've written this draft and I'm going to self-publish, the first thing he says is, show me a copy. And I gave him the first printed copy and he liked it so much. He said, let's buy 500 copies to give to our clients globally.
Wow.
I went to the European Bank at that point, and I remember still, Pungi, that covered all my printing costs. And I would have still gone ahead because this was a labor of love. So even if I had to take losses, I was going to do it. But it made me feel so good about myself. It also made me feel a part of a community that supports me. And it helped really get the word across because we had clients at that point in Hong Kong, Singapore, India, Dubai, Spain. So people got to know about it in different places. They posted reviews on Amazon. So it was also a sort of a marketing tool. But what it really did for me was boost my confidence, and it was really sort of a big validation of my work because, as you know, writing is a very lonely journey. You're with your pen and paper, and you don't know how it's going to turn out or be accepted.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I felt accepted with that act of his. So that was one big act of kindness. The other is I have a friend here who's also a coach, and she introduced me to bibliotherapy. Bibliotherapy is recommending books to people depending on what they're going through in their life and their reading habits. And she gifted me a book called The Novel Cure. It's written by two bibliotherapists, Ella Berthoud and Susan Elderkin. And it lists about, I think, 150 ailments, literally from headache to heartache to being empty nesters, to going through a difficult time, as in separation, divorce, aging. And for every ailment, the cure is in the form of a book, a novel that is recommended. And they've given a write up sort of why they're recommending that book. So she gifted that to me, saying that I think this will really interest you. And that opened up a whole wide world for me. I trained to be a bibliotherapist myself with Ella, and I practice. And I think that was really an act of kindness of a friend thinking of another friend and selflessly saying, oh, I think this is what you would enjoy. So these are the things that, uh, stand up for me. Also, there is a society for children's book writers and illustrators. It started in the US. There's a Hong Kong chapter, and I remember the head of that society in Hong Kong called Mio Debnam. When I had my first draft of the book, I wanted to meet her, and she was so generous with her time. We met. She went through my draft in a detailed way. She didn't have to give me feedback on what I should do. My professor at Hong Kong University, I was doing a master's in creative writing from 2015 to 17. And at that time, I signed a contract with Penguin to do a series called Amma Take Me, which is for middle grade children. And it's about places in India, places of spiritual and historical importance. So places like Tirupati, Golden Temple, Shirdi. It has 5 books, the series. So my first book was The Golden Temple. And her name was Paige. Her name is Paige. And Paige was so particular. She said, before you submit your draft to Penguin, I want to go through it. So she literally took a pen and every page she edited for me. She said, this is a new beginning for you. You've been self publishing. Now you've got a contract with a publisher. This is your first book. Golden Temple, is well known, such a rich history of Sikhism. And she was so generous with her time. And she really made me realize that it was a big step, which at that point I was like, I didn't realize that, yes, it was a foray into another world. So yeah, so many examples of people doing it out of the love of writing, out of the love for you.
Wow, amazing. And I think as a first-time author, somebody doing this for you in terms of asking 500 copies, and the first thing I was like, I should have had managers like that. So fantastic. I think really, really inspiring to hear of that. And also like it makes the heart a little warmer to see that there are stories like this, there are people like that. And maybe I'll move on to the last question for today in terms of what would be an advice that you would like to, I think I'll give you two questions. You can answer either of them or both of
Yeah.
them. What would you give as advice to young women out there or women out there? And also, maybe the second question is, what would you tell your younger self?
Hmm. Both very exciting questions.
You can
I'm going to
both of
take the young women first. I think the first piece of advice, and I think this is something which would have really helped me as well as a younger self. So it's answering both of them on this point, is that take care of your physical and mental health for a variety of reasons. Physical health, because, of course, physically we want to be fit to have the energy to do what we want to do. Secondly, and I think more importantly at that age, it gives a lot of confidence, which gives high self esteem. And once you have high self esteem, you're able to achieve and do the things you want. You're able to give more of yourself in work and in your relationships. And mental health is extremely important. So to see where you are and not be shy of asking people for help, whether it is with coaching, whether it is with counseling, whether it is journaling. And this is something I wish I had known, or I wish the narrative at the time that I was growing up was that seeking professional help for mental health, if that was normalized, I would definitely have gone into therapy a lot earlier, and that there is no shame. So that is one thing, physical and mental health. The other thing I would say is get into action. So do things instead of thinking so much. So don't overthink, do things. The learning is in the doing. And even if we think we want to try one thing, it's not successful, we haven't failed. There's nothing called failure. You either win or you learn. And all those learnings which seem like failure at that time will build up, and those skills and assets will not go anywhere. You will get to use them and use them multiple times later. But it's very hard as a young woman to see that going ahead. Like Steve Jobs had said, you can connect the dots looking back, but not forward. So trust in yourself in what you want to do. And finally, I would say find some time to meditate every day, even if it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And that, I think, will hold people in very good stead in the long run to find that inner sense of peace. And I think it also gives one the realization that young women don't need any other validation except for the validation they give themselves.
Wow. I think that is so powerful, and that's so deep in terms of multiple aspects. I think the validation that we're seeking, sometimes we are the ones that need to validate it, and our validation is somewhere the most important one.
Yeah.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you for your time today. And you've come all the way from Hong Kong and expressed your thoughts, feelings, and emotions today. And all of the stories, I think, I am going to ask your manager's number. I have a book coming up. But then this is fantastic talking to you. And also for anyone who's listening and anyone who's hearing this, I just dropped Bhakti's LinkedIn on the description. You can always reach out and get in touch. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Such a pleasure. And thank you for this opportunity for me to share my life story.
Fantastic. Thank you.